welcome to lecture 5. Here we will discuss about the electrical properties and the stability of colloids. Now, electric property. As we have already discussed in the last lecture what is zeta potential and how it is measured. Zeta potential, it is the difference in electric potential in the plane of shear of the charged particles, difference between the plane of shear and the electrically neutral region. Now, these electric properties, when we check this electric properties, first is your surface charge. We discussed how these surface charges are created in our lecture in lecture 4, and here we will discuss about how to measure this zeta potential. This zeta potential is very important to predict the stability of the colloidal dispersion. Now, electrophoresis, excuse me, the zeta potential can be determined by electrophoresis. Electrophoresis means here the charged particles will move either towards cathode or they will move toward anode depending on the charge present on their surface. Okay. And it is used to determine the sign and magnitude of the zeta potential, and this involves the movement of the charged particles under the influence of applied potential difference. How we will know the sign of the particles means what, whether the positive charge is present or negative charge is present. If the particle moves towards the anode, then we can say that the colloids contain negative charged particles. If the particle moves towards cathode, we can say that the colloid contains cations or positive charged particles. Then comes magnitude. How we will find out the magnitude of the zeta potential? Here the rate of migration depends on the charge of the particle and the potential gradient applied. Ultra microscope is used to observe the migration of the particles, and as we know that we have already discussed that shear plane of the particle is located at the periphery of the tightly bound layer, and the potential estimated from this is your zeta potential, and the apparatus is standardized by the particles of known potential like RBC of rabbit. Here RBC of rabbit is used to calibrate or standardize the apparatus. Now, the velocity of the particle migrating is directly proportional to the potential gradient applied. So, V is directly proportional to the potential gradient applied. So, to equate this, we will multiply with it with zeta potential. We will multiply it with zeta potential. So, zeta potential is a proportionality constant. So, V zeta potential multiplied by this potential gradient applied, difference in potential potential gradient voltage, difference in voltage. Now, this zeta potential is equal to V by E, that is velocity of particle migrating divided by potential gradient applied, and this velocity depends on the dielectric constant and it also depends on the viscosity. Dielectric. So, we can also write this equation as zeta potential is equal to V by E multiplied by 4 pi into viscosity. This stands for viscosity and this epsilon stands for dielectric constant. So, from this we can calculate the zeta potential. Then we will study about the Donan membrane equilibrium. This principle is very important and it can be used to enhance the absorption of some anionic drug which is diffusible in presence of a anionic polyelectrolyte which itself is non-diffusible. Suppose according to this principle, the drugs such as your sodium salicylate and potassium benzyl penicillin, if they are taken in combination with a non-diffusible anionic polyelectrolyte which is non-diffusible through the semi-permeable membrane, then they increase the drugs absorption through the semi-permeable membrane. Okay. So, here we have taken the sodium carboxyl methyl cellulose as a anionic polyelectrolyte and it is non-diffusible. Suppose I write here CMC minus, which represents sodium carboxy methyl cellulose, okay, and this is non-diffusible, and along with this I have taken my drug which is also an anion and it is diffusible. This drug is diffusible, then suppose this is your semi-permeable membrane, then the absorption of the drug through this semi-permeable membrane will be increased in presence of this non-diffusible anionic polyelectrolyte. And this similarly these ion exchange reagents, sulfates and phosphate ions which do not diffuse readily, they can be used to drive other anionic drug readily through the intestinal tract into the blood stream. And yes, but one thing has to be taken into account, that the drug should not form complex with this anionic polyelectrolytes. If it forms a complex, it will form a macromolecule and this macromolecule will not be able to cross the semi-permeable membrane or the cell membrane. So, we will study in details. Suppose for example, we have taken a chamber and inside this chamber we have a semi-permeable membrane. We have kept sodium ion and chloride ion in this chamber, and we have at the initial stage, at the starting stage, and in the inner membrane we have kept the indiffusible R minus anionic polyelectrolyte and the N plus. Okay. And at equilibrium what will happen? This cannot diffuse, this anion cannot diffuse, but the Cl minus can diffuse through this, and here we have R minus, Cl minus and Na plus. Now, at equilibrium, as we know that the charge is balanced and balance on both the sides of the membrane, means here the positive charges will be same as on this side of the membrane. positive charges will be same as that on the other side of the membrane, and even in this chamber we can see here that here the number of positive at equilibrium, the number of positive charges will be equal to the number of negative charges. So, at equilibrium, at charge balance, due to electron neutrality, outside will be in case of outside they will be same, as here the concentration of sodium ion is equal to the concentration of chloride ion. We are expressing it in terms of concentration. So, in place of number we can say here the concentration of sodium ion will be equal to the concentration of chloride ions present outside. And similarly, inside also the number of positive charge, that is the concentration of sodium ions inside will be equal to the sum of the concentration of negative charges, that is chloride and plus concentration of chloride ion and concentration of R minus ion, that is anionic poly electrolyte. Then according to the principle of escaping tendency, as I said that on both the sides the concentration of electrolytes will be same on both the sides of the membrane. On both the sides of the membrane, the concentration of the electrolytes will be same according to the escaping tendency. That means, Na plus and Cl minus concentration will be same inside, outside and inside. Here also the concentration of Na plus and Cl minus will be same as this. Okay. So, here we can write it down, the concentration of positive charged sodium ions and multiplied by the concentration of chloride negative charge is equal to concentration of sodium and multiplied by concentration of chloride ions inside the chamber. Now, what we will do here in place of Na plus, we can write Cl minus C0. Why we can write this? Because we are doing it at equilibrium. So, here as we know that concentration of sodium ion outside is equal to the concentration of chloride ion outside. So, in place of Na plus, we can write this one. In place of Na plus, we can write this one. So, here it will be Cl minus whole by concentration outside multiplied by concentration of Cl minus outside is equal to your, in place of Na plus minus, we can write this one. In place of Na plus concentration inside, we can replace this term by this one. So, here we write that Cl minus inside the membrane plus R minus inside the membrane multiplied with concentration of chloride. Now, as here we have two similar terms, that is your, it will be concentration of chloride outside to the power square is equal to here also we will multiply the concentration of chloride. So, it will be Cl minus to the power square inside plus concentration of your anionic poly electrolyte multiplied by chloride concentration of chloride. Now, we can rearrange the equation. We have rearranged this equation. And and after rearranging what we get, concentration of chloride ion outside to the power 2 that is square divided by concentration of chloride outside is equal to the power square is equal to 1 plus R minus concentration of anionic polyelectrolyte divided by concentration of chloride, and we again again what we can do the square root of this, then we will get Cl minus concentration of chloride outside divided by concentration of chloride inside is equal to square root of this. Okay. So, now in place of R, as we have taken the example of sodium carboxyl methyl cellulose. So, R in place of R minus we can use CMC, in place of chloride we can use drug. So, here we have replaced the term of chloride with the concentration of drug, anionic drug. This is applicable for anionic drug, and the drug condition should be that the drug should be diffusible, and here in place of R minus we can take any anionic polyelectrolyte which is non-diffusible. Now, two cases may be there. You can see these cases if the concentration of R minus divided the concentration of drug inside chamber is equal to 8, then we can find that D out is equal to 3 D in. Here D in represents your gastrointestinal tract and here D out represents your blood. So, if the concentration ratio of the non-diffusible anionic polyelectrolyte divided by the concentration of your anionic drug is equal to 8, then there is only 3 times increase in the concentration of drug in the blood. But if we increase the concentration of this anionic non-diffusible polyelectrolyte which is non-diffusible, if we increase its concentration in GIT, then see the ratio of these two is 99, and here we can see the amount of drug which will be absorbed or reach to the blood absorbed and get into this blood is 10 times to the concentration which is present in your GIT. So, from this we can conclude that if we increase the amount of non-diffusible anionic polyelectrolyte in GIT, then the amount of anionic drug absorbed from GIT to blood will increase. So, this is your Donan membrane equilibrium. Then comes your stability of colloids. Stability of colloids is a very important parameter, and ideal colloidal dispersion should have following properties. What? There should be no change in the dispersed phase size with time, and the dispersed phase should be uniformly distributed, uniformly dispersed in the dispersion medium, Now, this colloidal dispersion are stable by the Brownian motion. We have already discussed that due to the Brownian motion, these colloidal dispersions are stable, and Instability can be seen by precipitation or aggregation. Now, the stability cause can be attributed to, firstly, if it is a lyophilic, then as we have discussed, these solvent the solvent molecules forms a sheath on the particle surface. So, due to the formation of this sheath, what happens? These two particles do not come in contact with each other, and the Brownian motion is maintained. And in case of lyophobic colloids, electric charge on the particles is created, and due to the creation of electric charge on these particles, the same charged particles repel each other. As they repel each other, the Brownian motion is maintained, and so there should be a very delicate balance balance which depends on your formulation and the environmental factor. Like for example, when we are formulating a dispersion system, then we have to keep into account what type of electrolytes or means additives, excipients we are using, what surface active agents we are using, what type of electrolytes we are using, and when we come to environmental factor, we have to focus on the temperature, what is the temperature in which these colloids are prepared and kept. So, there has to be a very balanced use of the chemicals or the ingredients to prepare the colloids. Now, so before going to stability, we should understand certain concepts like your kinetic stability. What is kinetic stability? The thermal energy provides kinetic energy to the colloidal particles, and due to which they collide. With each other, and the charges on the particle surface provides an electrical barrier to overcome this in order to aggregate, in order that they can aggregate. And lyophobic colloids are thermodynamically unstable, and lyophilic colloids and association colloids are thermodynamically stable. Now, this lyophobic colloid stability, we can study this by using DLVO theory. This DLVO theory name has derived from the first letters of the scientist who had invented it, like your Darjaguin, Landau, Verwey and Overgrick, DLVO. This theory is based on the distance between the two particles and their interaction. Colloidal particles exhibit Brownian motion, and this Brownian motion causes collision between the two particles, and the amount of electrolytes decides that whether it will be a stable one or it will precipitate. Then this DLVO theory basically it describes the case where van der Waals force are present in combination with electrostatic force, and the theory is based on an assumption that the electrostatic double layer force and the van der Waals force do not interact with each other, they are independent and therefore can be superimposed or added with each other interaction with distance from for two particles. This DLVO theory is often is an often good estimation for intersurface forces for surface separated down to about 5 nanometers. Now, in this DLVO theory, in the y axis we take interaction energy, and in the x axis we take the separation distance, the distance between two particles. Now, this DLVO theory is actually it is related with the balance between two opposing forces. One is the electrostatic repulsion force and one is the van der Waals attraction force. And this two, by using this two, we can explain the many causes or the causes of coagulation of certain colloidal systems. Now, due to Brownian motion, collision takes place between the particles. So, there are two types of interaction, one is your attraction and another is your repulsion. Attraction, if it predominates, the particle adheres after collision and aggregates. If repulsion predominates, then the particles will rebound after collision and remains individually dispersed. Okay. Now, this when we study about this DLVO theory, the potential energy curve versus the interparticle distance for the particle is particles in a dispersion is discussed. Now, the particle interaction, suppose what we can interpret from this curve. Suppose if the van der Waals attraction force predominates, or these three force, mainly two forces are involved, one is your attraction force and one is your repulsion force. The first is your attraction force. Now, this van der Waals force of attraction, it depends on the chemical nature, size of the particle, and this represent your attraction curve, this VA, this represents your attraction curve. Then comes your electrostatic repulsion curve. Now, here the electrostatic repulsion curve, it is represented by VR. VR, what happens? It depends on the density, on the surface charge and the thickness of the electrical double layer on the particles, and this repulsion curve is indicated by VR. And the magnitude of zeta potential indicates the repulsion force, and it has been found that when this zeta potential ranges between 20 to 50 millivolt, then it gives a stable colloidal dispersion. Net energy interaction is a algebraical addition of two curves, that is your VT, that is your VT, this is your VT, this is your VT and this is your VM. Okay. So, what we can infer from this energy curve? We can infer a primary minimum or a sign of precipitation. In this case, what happens? The particles comes very close to each other. If the distance between the two particles is decreased and it comes very close to each other, then precipitation takes place. Why? As they come close to each other, the particles overlap each other at atomic, and their atomic orbitals overlap each other, and as it overlaps each other, the distance is so small that it can overcome the repulsion force, and each of the particles penetrates each other's atomic orbital, overlapping takes place. So, here precipitation takes place. So, it is represented by sign of precipitation, and the net energy peak is your sign of better stability, and it is denoted by Vm. It is denoted by Vm. At peak, the maximum potential is designated as Vm. The stability of the colloidal system can be defined by the height of the maximum in the potential energy curve. and the next we will discuss the remaining part in the next lecture. Thank you.